you shout. You tune in on bandstand, they're jumping like mad, and the dancing they're doing, it don't look bad. You get that itchy twitchy feeling. You start rocking and a reeling. Soon your arms and legs start flapping like a hound dog mouth yakking. You're rocking and a rolling. You don't understand it, but it sure feels nice. You thought you might try it about once or twice. You started with that dance they call the stroll, but you felt much better doing rock and roll. You get that itchy twitchy feeling. You start rocking and a reeling. Soon your arms and legs start flapping like a hound dog mouth yapping. You're rocking and a rolling. Seen a lot of people with it, but you got it bad. You got that itchy twitchy.
Waiting for Justin Trudeau to resign is like waiting for a kidney stone to pass. If you've never passed a kidney stone, it's excruciatingly painful. And you just want it to be over. And that's how I feel about Justin Trudeau. Justin Trudeau is Canada's kidney stone. I don't understand people who say, we don't want an election between now and Christmas. I would walk barefoot in the snow, minus 50 below, during a blizzard to vote him out. I would do that on Christmas Eve. I would. I'd go to church and then go vote him out. Yeah. Justin Trudeau is...
Go to church and then go vote out Justin Trudeau. You gotta love that woman. Welcome back, everybody, to the front line with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo and Joe Rossinello going way in the breach tonight. And we're glad you're all joining us, whether it's X, Rumble, Facebook, YouTube. You guys are awesome. We thank you so much for all that you do to help us. Help us even more. Share this video, like, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. So we're going kind of like we're going a little bit around the world tonight. We're probably, I think, gonna talk about Canada, but there's things, of course, going on here. I mean, I don't know. Let's just call it weird. Let's give it, Joe. Let's give it the little W. Okay, everything's a little weird. You got the press is complaining about the fact that the ABC News has to pay Donald Trump $16 million. So of course, that's atrocious. He's going after the press. Okay, whatever. We'll break that down. We got to talk about this spending bill, okay? Because that's really crystallizing everything as far as Trump coming in, Biden going out. You got Mike Johnson, seems like a turncoat. So it's really, it's something that we're going to have to talk about. And then the wokeness knows no bounds. But Joe Rossinello, say hi first of all, Joe. How you doing?
Hello, all. Merry Christmas. Getting ready.
Merry Christmas, and we are getting ready, and we have a few of our regulars in the house. It looks like a couple of not so regulars, which of course, welcome to you all. But yeah, so it's going to be an interesting conversation because Joe, I think a lot of things are coming to a head, particularly with Mr. Trudeau.
Prime Minister, are you going to remain in office, sir?
Good to see you guys. Cheers, guys.
What gives you the right to continue?
Guys.
What gives you the right to stay in office?
Thank you.
You failed Canada. You've ruined our country. You're done. Walk away. You don't have an ounce of your father's integrity. At least he walked in the snow. You've ruined this country. Everyone around you is running from you. You're abandoning you. Christian Freeland, Sean Fraser, they've all left you. It's time for you to go. It's time for Canada to have an election. You're not the king.
Okay, that's the Prime Minister getting into his motorcade. I do not know who was shouting those questions, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say it wasn't.
Yeah, of course they don't know who was shouting those questions. You know who was shouting those questions? A Canadian citizen. That's who was shouting those questions.
What
And they,
what's nuts is Freeland, just to give people some background. I mean, obviously, a lot of Canadians are in the chat right now, but some of our American listeners may not know. Freeland, who we showed in the intro, she's the finance minister. She resigned 2 hours before she was going to basically talk about the budget.
really?
Yes. And then it got passed down to like the next in charge, and they resigned. So people are saying Justin Trudeau should present the budget. Justin Trudeau should resign. I mean, it's shameless, Joe. It's just simply shameless.
Well, but what do I? Let me ask you a question, because, like I said, this bleeds into America. We've been on the show now for quite some time. We talked about how the will of the people was thwarted when it comes to Brexit. It's like nobody gives a damn about what the people say. Justin Trudeau, you see the way he looked at the crowd.
Oh, could
There's
care
one of the
less.
guys yell. He doesn't give a. He doesn't give a darn, all right, about anything. The guy says to him, "You think you're a king? You're not a king." Yes, he does. Yes, he does, Joe. That's
No,
the
I
problem.
agree with you.
Biden is about to leave office. Biden is selling off Donald Trump's border wall,
That
making
we
it
paid
hard
for.
for Trump to secure the border
That we paid for.
that we paid for. He's
Pennies on
selling
the
it.
dollar. Pennies, dude. I mean, that's another conversation. It's just an absolute disregard for the people.
Let me ask
And
you a question. As a guy who does, you personally, you're not a vengeful person. You're not a spiteful person. There's always a side of me. This is the thing I have about the left, and I want your thoughts, and anybody out there who's listening to us here at the front line with Joe and Joe. Joe, I don't want to be that way. I applaud Donald Trump when he says he's not going to go after people. I really do. I said we should show mercy to Hunter because he's obviously ill. He's a drug addict. Okay, so let's pray for him. Maybe Trump could show him mercy. Maybe Biden had a moment of clarity with Donald Trump when he visited the White House. Maybe something along the lines. You know what, Joe? I'm at the point now where I'm like, go after them all. Because what they're doing is they're showing is that they're not interested in mercy. They're not interested in forgiveness. They're interested in grinding everybody to dust. And now that they're about to be out of power, and that includes Justin Trudeau, I don't know how everything works in Canada. Maybe people in the chat, Joe or you, could tell me how it works. He's about to go. Biden's about to go. Okay. I want Trump to go after them all. I'll be honest with you. Not Justin
Dude,
Trudeau.
if they
You know what I'm
broke the
saying?
law, they have to go to jail. That's how.
Well, that's the thing,
works.
and I don't want to see any mercy.
No,
I don't want
but
to see any mercy.
Because here's the thing: there has to be accountability. I don't even think it's there's no mercy without justice. I'm not saying you go on like a witch hunt, but what I am saying is, if you broke the law, you have to go to jail. And ultimately, swinging back to Canada, it was Donald Trump who basically was going to levy 25% tariffs on the Canadian government. Because of the border, which was going to come into play in January next month. I think that's what put the government into chaos. And that's why Freeland resigned. And frankly, Justin Trudeau, though, has the cover of the press, and he will just lie and deflect and basically do everything he can to not address the issue, as he's done the entire time he's been the prime minister.
Well,
why should he leave?
Well, that's why you need people. That's why you need people that are going to call him, and people like him, but particularly him, call him to the carpet, kind of like this guy.
Mr. Speaker, just to underline the chaos we're faced with here, the finance minister resigned the day she was to present the fall budget, which was going to contain a massive deficit overrun. The job then went automatically to the industry minister, who immediately resigned, like on the spot, which then went down the line, and the next person in order was the famous two Randys. And they're not available to do the job either. We're now less than 2 hours away from the fall economic update. Why won't the Prime Minister have the courage to come in here, present it himself, and put it for a confidence vote tonight?
So, Joe, I want your comments on that, because to me, that's pretty plain speaking. And it shows another thing, too. These people don't want to catch a falling knife. Nobody wants to catch a falling knife. Justin Trudeau's falling. Everything starts trickling down, and everybody's like, up, I'm out. Chrystia Freeland, then the next guy, Okay. And then that first clip we showed, she's a freaking weirdo anyway. But the thing is, they don't want to catch a falling knife, and they do know that the knife is falling.
Well, know what it is? If you ask me, what it shows me, we don't have democracies. Because if you were concerned that you'd get voted out, well, or you were concerned with the people because supposedly the people have the power and we vote and blah, 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 you would basically act differently. And they don't. Same in America. Look at Joe Biden. Look at what they're doing. You mentioned earlier, they're selling Trump's wall that we paid for. You see, you're not spiting Donald Trump. You're spiting us.
Right.
Like people wasted money, our money, because it's not their money and they don't care. And they do it in plain sight. And that's where, honestly, people, and that's the beauty of the internet, because of course the press isn't going to talk about that because they carry their water. People should be so disgusted. I mean, Joe, I'll never trust our government again. After what I have watched in the last 8 years of what our government has done in the last 8 years, between COVID, between weaponizing the justice system against Donald Trump, you don't have to like Donald Trump to be disgusted by what you saw. We turned into a banana republic. We changed our voting laws. It is nothing short of a farce.
Now, let me tell you something. It's still, here's the thing, too, and we're going to get into it in a little bit, Joe Resinello. It still is. Look at what we're dealing with. We just got done saying that you want to call it celebrating. I kind of was I had a celebratory feeling in my heart, knowing that Trump won by 5 million popular votes and crushed her in the Electoral College, right? Undeniable, too big to steal, too big to rig, okay? And look at what we're left with. And we're going to get into it in a few minutes, but I want your comments first. Mike Johnson's trying to ram down a bill because the Uniparty wants to have one last party.
Mike Johnson's got to go. I mean, I knew that way before.
As soon as Trump's in, he's out.
Dude, Mike Johnson, I'll never forget when he became the Speaker of the House. I listened to his speech. You can Google it. It's about a 40-minute speech. Dude, you would have thought he was Thomas Jefferson. It was so well put together, the speech. I said, gosh, this guy is the real deal. What a wonderful speech. He is a bomb. And I'll tell you what, I don't think he has the spine. And he's just basically, if you ask me, he's like a reed in the wind. It's too big of a machine. Like that he can't hold the wind back. And it again should tell people something. The system does not work for you. Joe's talking about the bill. We're going to play a few clips that kind of gets into the weeds in terms of what's in it. But just to give the listeners a taste, they're giving themselves a $70,000 a year raise, Joe. Joe, have you ever, I think it's a 40% increase. Have you ever gotten a 40% increase ever?
Joe, I got a 2.5% cost of living increase.
But this is my point. I haven't gotten a raise in 2 years. Right. So my point, like, I'm just saying, and they went from like 170 something to like $240,000 a year.
You want to know why they did that too? Because Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy are not going to allow them.
100%. And this is, again, people have to open their eyes. There should not be one person who would vote for that for fear that they would get voted out. But they have no fear because the press isn't covering that. Right. And this is the problem with our system. The press is not on the side of the American people, and the quote unquote representatives do not represent us.
Right.
How could you get away with that? Joe, it's like unbelievable. And I'll be honest with you. It's enough to be honest with you. People should like riot. It's so bad. And this is nothing new because they do this every single year. Thomas Massey wrote an article about it and he predicted it. And Mike Johnson denied he was going to do it. I'm going to tell you what he did. And he did it anyway. It's the Christmas bill. What is that? They put the bill out yesterday. It's 1,500 pages. No one read it. and they had to pass it by Friday.
Vivek read it. By
Well,
the way,
yeah, I mean, that's
I know what you're saying. The members of the House didn't read it. Vivek read it, though. He was able to get in front of it. And as it is right now, well, we'll get into that in a minute. But I do want to ask you this before because I want to play the clips, and then we're going to talk more about what's going on in our Congress. But just real quick, final point on Canada. Joe, you have to help me. When are there elections in Canada? Do you know?
I'm not that familiar how that process works. To be,
I'm
truthful.
hoping for well, first of all, I know a lot of people may have a problem with Poilievre. Look, I look at it this way. I'm going to say this about Poilievre. I might not agree with him on everything. I don't know everything about him. But one thing I do know is this: at least he's not a globalist. At least he's not going to go into people, tell the banks to take money out of people's bank accounts like Justin Trudeau did, with the truckers and things like that, and act the way he did, and just stick a weed up the what of the Canadian people by issuing that what was it, that carbon tax or the
it's 2 carbon taxes. That's got to go. That's one of his big platforms. But ultimately, like any globalist, whether it's in Canada, the U.S., Europe, Australia, New Zealand, they're destroying the middle class. Case in point, Canada. Justin Trudeau destroyed the middle class. Case in point, California. The middle class does not exist in California. Gasoline is $9 a gallon in the San Francisco Bay Area. If you're a regular person, you're a teacher. You're educated. You're a teacher. You're a nurse. You're a cop. Dude, you can't live anywhere near San Francisco.
Oh, no. You kidding me?
I mean, I'm just being honest. And that's just, you're an educated person. It's not like you're stocking shelves at Aldi's. You know what I'm saying? Like you're an educated person. You have a job. Dude, you can't live. And that is the result of globalism. And any politician that supports globalism, people have to see with their own eyes, and you can't vote for that person because they're going to strangle you. But then the press holds their water, persuades them to blame their neighbor as opposed to blame the policies themselves, which are basically starving people to death, can't put gas in their car, can't heat their houses. I'm not making this up. Follow the news on X in the UK. Look at what's going on in Holland. Look at what's going on in France. Look at what's going on in Canada. Look at what's going on in Australia. It's the same playbook. And if you think that any person, Republican, Democrat, whatever, libertarian, who embraces globalism, particularly the economics that will go along with that, you're just slitting your own throat. I don't know what else to say.
I'm not going to be like them. I'm not going to attack those people that vote for Justin Trudeau or Joe Biden or anything like that. I'm not going to do to them what Hillary and Barack Obama and Joe Biden did to us by calling us garbage, by saying we cling to God and guns, by calling us deplorable. I'm not going to do that. But what I would say to somebody who would vote for globalism is say, do you really believe in your heart of hearts that you are not cutting your own throat? Because your wages
I think
are
some of them
down.
do, Joe. Because they convict, because you know what it is? It's a religion. Their politics is a religion. And what they do is they don't look at that part of it. And then the press spins some lie that basically misdirects why something's going, and they believe it. And they rationalize it away. Meanwhile, they can't eat. Meanwhile, they can't feed their family. Meanwhile, they can't put gas in their car. Meanwhile, their house is cold. It's literally, dude, it's the saddest, one of the saddest things I've ever seen in my entire life. It's literally, it's like, you know what it's comparable to? It's like women, single mothers in the inner city, their children have to go to subpar schools, and generation after generation after generation of them vote for the same people that keep their kids uneducated. Year after year after year, they believe the lies, and it perpetuates itself. It's very similar. And it's like watching, to be honest with you, it's a tragedy. It's a tragedy.
Well, it really is, because here's the thing. I could disagree with somebody, let's say, for argument's sake, who's a Democrat, or somebody who's, let's say, moderately on the left. I don't consider myself a hard right winger. I think I'm moderately right, mostly just try to be practical. Okay. and hold firm on those things that we're not going to give an inch on, like abortion. But I could talk to people, let's say a Democrat sit across the aisle, because a run-of-the-mill rank and file Democrat is, again, I wish they would understand that Joe and I are we practice what we preach. I don't blindly vote for the Republicans, okay? In other words, I don't even call myself a Republican anymore. It just seems that the Republicans are less insane than the Democrats. I don't understand how a blue-collar guy looks at all the wokeness, the globalism, especially if you're blue-collar, especially with what the globalists want to do to blue-collar industries like the longshoremen, like the Teamsters, like the coal miners, like the auto workers, like the plane manufacturers, the guys who build the airplanes, okay? All those union jobs. What do you think's going to happen to you? Do you think you're going to get your union wage and your lifetime benefits if George Soros is running things? Do you really? Because George Soros is running things when you vote for Biden, when you vote for Trudeau, when you vote for Macron, when you vote for Starmer in the UK. George Soros is running things. And they have no time for you, Mr. Longshoreman.
No,
they have no time for you. When you go into this, let me tell you something. You're better off with Donald Trump, dude. At least the guy is going to be on your side. Trump took the side of the longshoremen in that strike,
Well, what's funny, and even you take the people who make a lot of money, who live in cities, who support globalists, like people who live in Paris, people who make money in Toronto, people who make money in New York, people who make money in San Francisco. They destroyed your police department. They put in DAs that don't prosecute crime. So even though you can afford the pay hikes because you make a lot of money, and there are people who just say that way. Listen, it's my debt to society. I'm paying my part. I've heard that line. However, when you walk from your office to your $5 million apartment in New York City, you get mugged. You can't go in the subway. There's somebody peeing on your doorstep in the morning, and they did that too. So, again, I can't understand. I'm not saying Donald Trump's the answer. All I'm saying is I have eyes, and so do you. I can't understand how anyone could support this platform. If you're an objective person who has eyes, I don't get it. And actually, I kind of do, because, again, it's their identity, Joe. You're not going to deny yourself. It's you know what I'm saying? It's like defending, your mother. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of what it is. It's their identity. It's in some respects, it's their religion.
Well, see, but that's what bothers me, like others, about people who would criticize us. What we voted for a platform that we could mostly agree with, okay? I think the MAGA movement is a movement that transcends Donald Trump. It's going to go way beyond him. I think it's going to tweak along the way and become a little bit more focused. But, strong borders, strong industry, working wages, all of it, okay? A bit more, let's hope, social conservatism, at the very least, less wokeism, all right? But it wasn't an ideological choice. I really believe that so many people on the left voted for Kamala Harris because it was purely an ideological choice. And you're right. It's like, dude, all you got to do is just look a little that way and a little bit that way. If you want to challenge me to do that, you could come on the show and you could challenge Joe and I. We'll go with you toe to toe. We're not knee-jerk, lockstep Republicans or even conservatives for that matter. Okay, Joe, we did it. Who did we do an interview with? Michael Warren Davis?
Yes, that's recently. That was on the radio today at noon.
Yeah, so it was on the radio. We recorded that. That was talking about after Christendom. And the first question I had asked him in the show was, "What does it mean to be a conservative?" He goes, "I gave up that fight a long time ago," and he's right. Forgot about conservative, liberal, and all that. Now it just comes down to, are you voting for the insanity because you just can't see yourself looking at anything different because grandpa and grandma voted for the Democrats? Or are you looking practically? Because if you look practically, you should be looking at the MAGA movement and saying your interests lie there. Those people would actually.
Interesting that you mentioned Davis. Anthony, what's his name? Warren Davis.
Michael Warren Davis.
He was a lockstep conservative, writing in the Federalist. And when we met that dude, he was, he was like an established political, commentator. He's like, I've had it. He's like, I am just going to pray. He was like taking that route, which I found to be very interesting. He kind of went full circle. While obviously politics are important, because they are, people have to be informed. And most people aren't, sadly, because of the way things are structured. I don't think our governments work for us anymore. But the answers to our problems stem from where our feet are grounded. And that is the people up to the politicians. And we are, to your point, what he wrote about, it's after Christendom. We are no longer in countries that are grounded in Judeo-Christian beliefs. And any country that is not grounded in God will soon be grounded in power, which ultimately will benefit the few. That is historically accurate, and that happens time and time again. Only countries that are grounded in a Judeo-Christian ethic. Does that mean they're perfect? Does that mean the people are perfect? No. But what it does do is it puts limits on people. It puts limits on power because there's something else. I have some accountability that's above what I see. When you don't have that, all bets are off. It becomes purely Machiavellian, and only a few people benefit. That's how it is in South America. That's how it is in Africa. That's how it is in Asia. And that's soon how it will be in the West. It's already that way in Europe, and it's coming to a theater near you in America. California is like that, and it's going to creep right across the country. And that is exactly what is going to happen when you give up God and you rely solely on the state. Only the few benefit, the majority do not.
Well, it's like you said, too, about like if you give up God, you're going to have a religion, whether you think so or not. So if you look at, let's say, environmentalism is a religion. Political ideology can become a religion, as you just said. Why else would you like be lockstep with the left, which is just totally not in your own interest? Just manifestly, you could look at it on paper and say, this is not in your own interest to vote for these things. Who the hell wants to freeze in the wintertime because Justin Trudeau puts on 2 carbon taxes and then basically says, we have to worry about the climate. We have to worry about the climate.
In the UK actually said that publicly, talking about how he was going to basically limit money for fuel for people who are on pensions. Do you remember that clip? I mean, how do you actually, and he was challenged on it, how do you actually straight-faced tell the public that? How does he have power?
Go ahead, Joe.
No, what I was just going to say, that as an objective person, I'm not in the UK, but just as a person who listens to something like that, my takeaway is it's not a democracy. It's a totalitarian state. Right. He's doing whatever he wants to do,
and he's
getting away with it.
And in a religious way, he has those people convinced that if they don't accept the tax, or they don't accept that they're going to take away some of that what was it, coal in the UK? I think they were taking away the coal subsidy or something along those
just basic heating, like
whatever it was going to be that was going to help them to heat their homes
for pensioners, old people,
going to take it away. And in a religious way, it really is. Starmer was telling them that really it is in their interest to worry about climate change and not worry that you're going to be cold this winter because we have to worry about the planet. So what they've done is they sold them a lie that about the climate lie, the climate hoax. We all know it's a hoax. It's just leftism dressed up in a different way. And they have these people who are going to be freezing their you-know-whats off this winter. They have them believing, well, it's for the greater good. No, it's for George Soros's good. It's for the globalist good.
Well, they're also use it as a tool. They use it as a tool, as they did with COVID. COVID, another reason, like I said, I'll never trust America again because of what they did to people.
Well, let me tell you something. Let me tell you something about mercy.
Ever.
Let me tell you something about mercy. I'm going to tell you right now, and this is the point I'm at, and I don't care how old he is. I want to see Anthony Fauci. I want to see him in an orange jumpsuit.
He should go to prison.
Dude is a lying. He is a lie. I won't say the word. I know you don't like when I say it. He's just a lying person, and he lied to everybody, and he caused people's deaths, by the way.
Joe, the harm, it was the largest transfer of wealth in the history of America. How many people lost jobs? How many kids fell behind in school? How many people got sick because of an untested shot? How they lied to people.
Right.
I mean, It's sick. And again, I'll never trust that along with many other things that have happened in the last 8 years.
But let's talk about your trust
again.
Let's talk about your trust and how sometimes this is where you go from. To me, the Republican Party, Joe, is like the New York Jets at the beginning of this year, and many times in the New York Jets history. They raise your expectations to the point where there's almost an irrational exuberance. So before the season, we got Aaron Rodgers, we got Breece Hall, you got Garrett Wilson, you got a stud defense, right? We're going to the Super Bowl, baby, and then within 3 games, 5 games, the owner is firing Robert Saleh, the head coach, the general manager. Rodgers is falling on his face. There's all sorts of problems, and the Jets are one of the worst teams in the league. The Republican Party has a real knack for doing the same damn thing. And we don't have to go back to the beginning of the football season. We can go back to the beginning of November. Donald Trump won a resounding victory with the American people saying to the Congress and the Senate, saying, we want MAGA. We want that agenda. And what do we get? You mentioned yourself about Mike Johnson. Okay, so let's bring people up to speed. He got a spending bill was hatched 5 minutes ago. 1,500 pages. The only person who read it was Vivek Ramaswamy, who basically came out and said, well, the Republicans better vote against this, okay? They fund the office that wants to censor conversations like the Frontline with Joe and Joe. They fund all these things, okay? They continue the spending, and they make it difficult for Trump to govern. Impossible? No. But just they're throwing a wrench in his place. You wouldn't expect this, or at least you wouldn't think that a Republican Speaker of the House that we're all told is a really, really good conservative would be responsible for this. So let's get Charlie Kirk's take.
The House of Representatives yesterday, House of Representatives rushed a 1,500-page spending bill. Nobody has read and nobody understands. You know, something I really want clarity on is the logistics of this. Who wrote this? And who has been writing this? I want to meet that human being. In what office are they housed? I mean, 1,500 pages. I mean, Blake helped with Right Wing Revolution. I mean, that 1,500 pages is a lot. That's a lot of writing. Who's doing this? Are they using AI? I think they're using Copilot or ChatGPT. Here's the other question. Did ChatGPT write the continuing resolution? The continuing resolution includes $100 billion in disaster relief and FEMA funding. It includes a random revision to laws governing pharmacy benefit managers. Now, maybe it's a good law, maybe it's not, but they're folding a massive spending bill instead of debating all of these things directly. And again, I cannot reiterate this enough. If you are a member of Congress and you are just trying to go home for Christmas while bankrupting future generations with trillions of dollars of unnecessary spending, that is a bad reason. Okay, do a 1-week CR. Do a 1-week CR. Do a 1-week CR and then keep on debating. So that's what CRs were designed in the first place. CRs were always designed to give you an extra week, to allow negotiations to keep going, for 2 weeks. The CR includes that the federal government must pay 100% of rebuilding the cost of the Francis Scott Key Bridge, which collapsed. Obviously, a ship collided with it in Maryland. The bill gives control of the land containing the RFK Stadium in D.C. back to D.C. itself. Why is that part of emergency spending bill? I don't know.
Natalie Winter's reason she's not here this morning, she's going through this thing, and first thing she tells me is the Pandemic Preparedness and the Global Engagement Center. You heard those names before? Heard that from Mike Benz and Natalie and Darren Beatty? Heard those? Guess what, folks? Vivek's on it. The bill could easily have been under 20 pages. Instead, there's dozens of unrelated policy items crammed into 1,500 pages. There's no legitimate reason for them to be voted on as a package deal by lame duck Congress. 72 pages worth of pandemic preparedness and response policy. Renewal of the much criticized Global Engagement Center, a key player in federal censorship. And he goes on and on and on. We're grateful. This is Vivek, and I quote, we're grateful for Doja's warm reception on Capitol Hill. Nearly everyone agrees we need a smaller and more streamlined federal government. But actions speak louder than words. This is an early test. The bill should fail. So and if Grace, you can put back, let's get this out everywhere, folks. Push this out. Vivek is 1,000% correct. So Elon put it out earlier, I think this thing should pass or should fail. And I put up hard pass. I was going to put up, and I just didn't at the last second, motion to vacate. I think we just got to go to that. Like tell him, hey, dude, don't even put your name up. It's not going to happen. This is an epic fail. And not just that, it's the way the process is handled. Like Vivek said, they should have been working on this thing.
And that's right. They should have been working on it. But what is it all about? Now, here's the thing. I expect Democrats to do this. Okay? I really do. I expected Joe Biden was going to do. Well, it's not Joe Biden. It's Barack Obama. Let's always be clear about that. Biden is lost his mind. Every decision to sell those pieces of the border wall, that's all Barack Obama. That's all that is. Behind the scenes, he's working to try to thwart Trump as best he can. I wish they would learn. See, Joe, if I get punched in the face by somebody who's tougher than me, and I think I could fight the guy, but he just hits me that fifth time in the face, and I haven't really even landed a punch. You know what I'm eventually going to do? I'm eventually going to say, this guy could really beat the crap out of me. I'm going to have to back off, okay? I thought I could go to toe-to-toe. I can't. He's just too tough. I wish they would get that lesson through their heads, that it is not hyperbole to say that Trump's comeback was the greatest comeback in American history. Joe, I really thought, what the hell is this guy doing? Why is he even going to think about running for president again? I did. I consider myself pretty level-headed. You're level-headed. I was like, what? Donald Trump's not going to ever become president again. Aren't they going to realize it? Aren't they going to realize, why is Mike Johnson allowing this to happen?
Because he's owned. Because he's owned. They're all owned. There's only a handful of people in our government. A handful.
Joe, I want Thomas Massie as our speaker.
Oh, I want him to be the president. I love Thomas Massie. I would vote for him to be the president.
That too.
Like the problem is, it's the way, and sadly, the conservative court gave it to us. I think in that what was it called? Citizens United. I know you like it a little bit, but that basically hurt the democracy because it opened up the way campaign financing works. It took it away from regular people. I think that was a bad decision. And it was bad even before that, because these people are given money. Tulsi Gabbard, listen to an interview with Tulsi Gabbard talking about the day of a congressperson. All they do is solicit money and meet with donors. They're not meeting with constituents. They're meeting with donors. It's a money grab. And that is the problem, because people don't give money for nothing. It's sort of like the Don Corleone method. What happens in the middle of the beginning of The Godfather? The baker comes in. He asks for a favor. So Don Corleone, what he says is this: I'm going to do this favor for you. I may never, ever ask you for anything, but one day I may. And if I do, I need you to deliver on that favor. That is how our political system works. That is why Mike Johnson is doing what he's doing. And that is why the system has to get restructured. You have to get people like Thomas Massie. We'll use him as the example. He went to MIT. He built a business with his wife. He made millions of dollars. In his 30s, he left Massachusetts, moved back to Kentucky. He's so smart. He built a home with his own hands that is like the greenest home. He's like, I'm the greenest congressperson ever. and he's not a globalist. He's so gifted, but he has something to give to the American people. He doesn't need money. He's wealthy. He can get a job on a dime and
Right.
make another fortune.
Right.
That's the type of person that has to be either a Republican or a Democrat. And these are the type of people we don't have.
Well,
They're parasites.
The Democrats are owned. We know they're owned because some Democrats have come out recently and saying, we have no voice within our own party. We are told what to say. If we want to say we don't want boys in the girls' room, girls in the boys' room, men in women's sports, we are shut down. So we know that they're not monolithic, but they might as well be, because those who would speak up don't have any power. What you need, this MAGA movement, if you want, I know I keep saying that, MAGA has to be a movement that elects people to the House that go there, number one, under a term limit. Okay. That goes without saying. Here's my solution. You talked about Citizens United. I thought it was a good decision. You don't. We could disagree on that. How about this? How about I'll agree that we move to public funding of all federal elections. You don't get any money from PACs. You don't get any money from corporations. You don't get any money from unions. You can't take any money from anybody. You're getting a certain amount of money to run your campaign, and that's it. You can't get any more money above that. That's number one. Number two, you have to vote in members of the House that agree to a term limit. Okay. You're going there, you get 10 years max. A senator has 12 years, you get 10. You could run for 5 terms, and that's it. And the other thing is, mentally, they have to be, Joe Resinello, of the mindset. My people are voting for me to go to Washington because over the next 10 years, I'm going to do if I get elected every time, I'm going to do everything in my power to take power away from Washington, not to bring it to Washington, to take it away from Washington. You would have thought Mike Johnson was like that. And obviously he's not. He's an abysmal failure. He's an utter disappointment. And when Trump gets elected, the Republican House better get together. They better elect somebody who's going to more represent the people that voted for Trump. I say it's Massey. He's the smartest guy in the House. Literally the smartest guy in the House, as you outlined. He's done things with his hands. He's earned money. He's lived the American dream, and he's grounded in God.
Well, the thing is, will the system even allow a person like that to be in power? Because
let me ask you this. I'm going to stop you, and then I'm going to throw it right back. But we didn't think. Well, let me not speak for you. I didn't think the system would allow Donald Trump to get elected.
No, I know what you're saying. You see, this is where, I'll deflect to John Horvat, who's a friend of the show. He wrote a book, Return to Order. In his book, he has a chapter about the type of leaders that we used to have and the type of leaders we need. Virtuous people. Thomas Massey is a man who is virtuous. Ron Paul is a virtuous person. You have to agree with these people. Believe it or not, I don't agree with his solutions, but he is his own person. Bernie Sanders. I don't agree with him, but he is his own man. He's not owned. He's not perfect, but at least he thinks for himself. You see, I'm not saying it has to be the same person. What I'm saying is it shouldn't be party over people. And that's the way it works. And it works that way because you can't buck the system because of the money. If you don't have money, you can't run a campaign. And that's the dilemma. You need people like Vivek, again, self-made. He has a skill set to offer. He doesn't need money. He's worth $600 million, Joe. So my point is, these are the type of people. And here's another thing, to your point, no more career politicians. Get lost.
That's what I'm
You're a barnacle. The McCains, the Bidens, the Romneys, the Lindsey Grahams,
right,
the McConnells.
Why does Mitch McConnell at near 90 years old have the power
Joe,
that
he doesn't even know where he is. It's an
Right.
embarrassment. I look at that man at a podium. I saw him last on a clip. Dude, he had like a gauze pad. I thought he was in Duck Dynasty. I thought he was one of the Duck Dynasty sons. He's not. He's dude. He's a senior member of the Senate who doesn't know where he is.
Right.
This is America. Dude, it's a clown show.
Well,
Joe.
you're speaking of clown shows. Let's move it a little bit here at the front line with Joe and Joe. Please, if you're liking what we're talking about, if you like our conversations in general, if you like our interviews that we post all over the place that we do for the radio back east, please like, subscribe, share, help us out, do all that fun stuff. Joe, here's a weirdo for you.
We should note, Kristen, I don't want to overstate Trump's friendliness and genial attitude at this press conference, because this weekend ABC News agreed to pay $16 million, including legal fees, to settle a defamation lawsuit brought by Trump against the network and their anchor, George Stephanopoulos. And that obviously will not be the end of this campaign against the media, a legal campaign against the media. We heard him go after many other news outlets today. Take a listen.
I'm going to be bringing one against the people in Iowa, their newspaper. We're filing one on 60 Minutes. We're involved in one which has been going on for a while and very successfully against Bob Woodward. We have one, very interestingly, on Pulitzer, because reporters at the New York Times, Washington Post got Pulitzer Prizes for their wonderful, accurate, and highly professional reporting on the Russia hoax.
We don't have time to go into all of that, but just to touch base on a couple. There's one of them is the people of Iowa, the Des Moines Register. That's because there was a poll that was inaccurate.
Mm-hmm.
The one on 60 Minutes is because they didn't like the editing that had been done to the Kamala Harris.
From Kamala Harris.
Yeah, I mean, this is wildly ridiculous.
Well, one of the things to keep in mind here is that Donald Trump feels like he won. I mean, this weekend, by having a settlement with ABC, one that many people did not think was going to come to fruition. They thought that this would end up in court, or that it would certainly not be a settlement in which ABC paid $6.
So here's the thing. Number one, Jake Tapper is wildly ridiculous, and we could break that down. See, the elitism drips off this guy, and I want to break it down with you, Joe Rosanello. And to her point, Trump did win, woman. That's what I would tell. Trump won in court. You want to know why? Because George Stephanopoulos said on air to Nancy Mace, "Why would you support a man who is two times, who's liable for rape?" George, you're the journalist. You're saying that you get to say anything you want, and you're not going to be held liable.
Oh, you hit it right on the head.
But here's the thing, Joe. The judge, who's probably in the leftist pocket, the judge came out and basically said, legally, we couldn't call it rape. It was sexual harassment. Okay. Then the judge got to say, I'm paraphrasing, it might as well have been rape. Well, no, Your Honor, it wasn't under the law. And thank God you are not the law. All right. And I wish you weren't a judge. But here's the point. Trump did win. And yes, Pulitzer should be sued. You gave Pulitzer prizes to reporters who reported on a hoax. If anything, reporters shouldn't get hoaxes wrong, Joe.
Well,
Okay?
Joe, it just goes to show you Jake Tapper doesn't get it. This is not a witch hunt, Jake. You don't have the right to lie. If you lie, as Stephanopoulos did, that he said something that was untrue, that's called slander. And he lost. He had to pay $1 million of his own money, $15 million from ABC, and publicly apologize. And that is exactly how this stops. Why is Jake Tapper nervous? Because he knows he could be next.
Because he can't say anything he wants.
And that is the way it should. You don't have the right to lie publicly and slander somebody. Listen, if something's true, report it. But if it's not, and you cannot substantiate what you're saying, well, guess what? You're getting sued. And do you know that after that suit took place, a woman on MSNBC, she has like a shaved head. She's an African-American woman, kind of heavy set. She doubled down on what Stephanopoulos said. And I said to myself, they just don't get it. They don't get it because hate blinds people. Right. This is nothing more than they cannot see past their hate. I'm not saying not report on Donald Trump. And if he does something wrong, report on it. But you cannot arbitrarily bend the truth or tell false ideas to people just because you hate somebody. And that's what Stephanopoulos did. And that is why there was a lawsuit. And that is why they lost. And listen, ABC News has the best lawyers out there. The best. It's a top of the line corporation, billion-dollar corporation. Those lawyers aren't giving Trump a penny unless they know they have no choice but to do so.
Right.
That should tell you everything you need to know, Jake.
The only thing is, when it comes to things like this, now, was this a ruling or a settlement?
It was a settlement. But the point is, ABC News, their legal team, they vetted that. And basically, how that works is we're going to lose. We're going to lose. Let's put up some money because we're not going to win. Because that's what lawyers do.
See, if it was me,
the risk.
If it was me, that's why I because I'm a hothead. If I'm sitting in a room with my lawyers and I'm Donald Trump in that case, and George Stephanopoulos is sitting on the other side, okay, this is a family show here at the front line with Joe and Joe, so I won't drop any F-bombs, I promise. But in that room, when they're negotiating, I'm saying, no, I'm taking you all to the effing cleaners. You first, George. You first. I promise you, you think $1 million is a lot? Wait till I get done with you because you intentionally lied about me. You intentionally lied. And by the way, Joe, not only that, think about if George Stephanopoulos was a conservative reporter who was saying this to Nancy Mace, who was a rape victim herself. Okay? So, like, the insensitivity on his part when it comes to Nancy Mace, because she's trying to say.
Did you see the interview? I have.
I saw parts of it.
She's visibly disturbed. And Stephanopoulos would not let it go.
Well, that's what I'm saying, because if I was in that room, I would have said, no, George, you don't get what you want. But here's the thing. I'm not slapping you on the wrist. I'm going to make you pay through the nose, and by the end of it, you won't have a job.
Well, I will tell you this.
Knowingly did this. You deserve no mercy whatsoever.
This is the avenue. Again, I'm all for reporting on good things and bad things. That's what the press is there for. If Donald Trump does something wrong, the people should know about it. However, you can't call people a racist unless you have evidence. You can't call people you can't call someone a thief if they didn't steal. You can't call someone a rapist if they're not convicted of rape because you don't like them. And this is what has to stop. The press just gets away with murder. If you lie, you get sued, pay up. And that is how it stops. I applaud the approach, and Jake has it wrong. This isn't a witch hunt, Jake. ABC doesn't give money away because they like Donald Trump. They gave it away because they knew they were going to lose.
That's
because
right.
They knew his legal team was right. And
Joe,
you don't get it.
And Joe, not only were they going to lose, they were going to lose bigly. You know
That's
what, though?
right.
You want to know what, though? It goes from wildly ridiculous, okay, with Jake Tapper. I mentioned the weirdo alert was up today, Joe. Okay, so I got the weirdo alert up because this is something we've never seen. We never saw a comeback in political history, American political history, like Donald Trump. We've never seen a Supreme Court justice do this.
Female empowerment. Sick. I like it too. I think what I like about it is that I am having a very strongly negative reaction to it. Like I hate it. Which makes me think it must be brilliant.
Got this feeling in my body.
Can't stop the feeling.
Got this feeling in my body.
I can't stop the feeling.
Wanna see you move your body.
I did it. I made it to Broadway.
Come on.
I'm not a girl, don't tell me what to believe. I'm just trying to find a woman in me.
Hi, I'm Justin David Sullivan. I use the pronouns he, she, and they, and I play Juliet's best friend, May.
While I'm in between.
May goes on a journey of self-discovery, finds love, and explores their gender identity.
I am fiercely proud that there are characters in this show that are.
I can't. There was a few seconds left, Joe. My stomach's moving. I had a cookie before the show. It's kind of rumbling in there a little bit. Let's leave yes, I'm sorry. Let's leave the weirdos alone, okay, for a second. But what is a Supreme Court justice? In other words, like all the criticisms of people like Clarence Thomas and Sam Alito and Scalia, God rest his soul. In other words, that's what a Supreme Court justice is supposed to be doing. If she could do that, if she could make that statement, because that's a political and cultural statement as far as I'm concerned.
That's activism. What she's doing, and this is, listen, maybe she was an actress in college, and this was her dream. I'm glad she got to fulfill her dream. Good for you. I'm not begrudging you. What I am commenting on is this. That movie, that just to give you some background, it's Anne Juliet. It's basically a gay version, a twist on Romeo and Juliet. That play is being put out to the public for a reason. It's activism. And she's in it to give it the attention it's not going to get if she is not in it. I wouldn't have even known that was on Broadway.
Right.
The only reason why I know it is because the Supreme Court justice is in it. And that's why she was put in it. And this is where, again, you're a judge. You're not an activist. And I'm glad you got to fulfill your dream, but they used you to basically give a platform for a lobby.
Right.
And that is my problem with what she did.
Well, how is she fairly going to listen to a case that involves anything as far as wokeness?
Well, she was never going to anyway. I mean, I've heard, dude, Sotomayor and Brown, if you listen, I invite anybody to listen to the tape on C-SPAN of that. I think it was Tennessee, the case where Tennessee made it illegal for minors to basically get like any type of transition.
Oh, yeah.
You listen to the back and forth that Sotomayor and Brown gave. I'll be honest with you. It's nothing short of embarrassing. It's embarrassing. These are Ivy League graduate attorneys. It's embarrassing.
Right.
And I am not interested in your activism. I'm interested in you interpreting the law. And that was nothing more than activism. They used her and she allowed them to use her.
Right.
And that's why I have a problem with it.
Well, yeah. Hey, listen, it's the same thing with Ruth Bader Ginsburg allowing Planned Parenthood to use her. Give her all sorts of money and prizes and trips and all the things that they were accusing Clarence Thomas of. These again, I won't curse, but they do bring that out in me. These senators like Dick Durbin, who's one of the most disgraceful, disgusting, evil human beings on the face of the earth. Okay, like you just look at him and you want to throw up at how evil he is, the way he knows and can lie about somebody. He's going to be held to account. He's a Roman Catholic. He's going to be held to account for the lies that he told about Clarence Thomas, okay, and all those senators. Clarence Thomas didn't do anything compared to these people. Ruth Bader Ginsburg took so much money from Planned Parenthood and everything else. It doesn't matter that she gave it away. The fact is that she took it. This woman is on a Broadway stage with a bunch of activists. How's she going to fairly adjudicate a case? She can't. Sotomayor is in the bag for the left. That's one of their biggest fears about Trump. You could have a 7-2 Supreme Court because Sotomayor is not in that great a shape, physically speaking. Okay. She needs help. She needs assistance. Okay. So the bottom line is, I think that Republicans and conservatives, which they won't because we have a bunch of Lindsey Grahams in the Senate that are just feckless. When a case goes up in front of the Supreme Court, somebody somewhere needs to say, excuse me, Justice Jackson, you need to recuse yourself from this case. You can't talk about transgenderism. Why? Because you're an activist. And you can't be an activist and fairly adjudicate a case. So you're going to have to recuse yourself. Nobody's going to have the stones to do that. But that would be a great thing. Joe, we're going to wrap it up. I want to give you the final word.
Well, what I invite people to do is just look on X. I know a lot of people have a problem with X. You can find all types of good voices on X. I tell people this at work all the time. There's a lot of crazy stuff on X too, but there's also some very, very comprehensive pieces of information. sources, geopolitical sources, sources about the bill, which we just talked about, where you get an insight into what's in it, where the press isn't covering it. This is, if you ask me, a wonderful tool for people. It's important for people to be informed because information is power. And without information, you're going to make the wrong choices. And if you make the wrong choices, those choices are going to come back and kick you in the you-know-where. And
That's right.
Your family, it's going to hurt your wallet, and ultimately, it's going to hurt the country. And we're watching that in real time.
You know what the best part about, I'm going to leave the audience with this. Stick around. We're going to play a quick 10-second clip on the way out. Best part about Elon and Vivek being the head of Doge is that Elon is going to be posting on X all of the lies and everything they uncover when they come to power. And they have the power. And it's going to be phenomenal because remember, X is a powerful tool. It's bearing the fruit that he wanted it to bear. And not only with its growing viewership, growing audience, newsmakers, influencers, people that are out there getting information, it's really pissing off the left. So he's accomplishing that too. Wait till he starts uncovering all this rat's nest of stuff that's been going on in the government for decades and decades and decades, and starts posting that all on X. And Donald Trump's going to go, he's going to go, Elon, keep it up, buddy. Keep it up. I want to thank you all for joining us here at the front line with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo and Joe Rossinello. We always go way in the breach Thursday nights, 9 o'clock Eastern time. And we're happy to do so because we get a chance to engage with wonderful people like yourself. We love you all. We really do want to wish you and your families all a Merry Christmas. We won't be on next week. We'll, of course, be on the following week. And yeah, we'll oh, wait a minute, Joe, are we going on? What day is Christmas?
It's a good question. Let me see.
Hang on. I'm a little confused. Okay. Christmas Day is Wednesday. So we will go on next week.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll go on next week. We'll be here for you. We want to thank you once again. Stick around for a short clip. And remember, until the next time, that our conversation is your conversation. And that conversation is going on everywhere. We'll talk to you soon.
How dare we speak Merry Christmas? How dare we?
Merry Christmas, everyone.